The locker room smelled of sweat and cheap body spray, a haze of teenage chaos swirling around me as I stood frozen, my heart hammering like it wanted to break free. Caleb was 3 feet away, laughing with some guys from the team, his voice cutting through the noise like it always did, sharp and bright and impossible to ignore. I'd been in love with him since ninth grade, and every day since then felt like a tightrope walk over a canyon of my own making. It was senior year in Willow Creek, a small town in Ohio where everyone knew your business before you did. Caleb and I had been inseparable since we were 14, when he found me crying behind the bleachers after my dad left for good. He didn't ask questions, just sat down, handed me a half-eaten Snickers bar, and said, "Life sucks sometimes, Elliot, but you don't have to do it alone." That was Caleb, all heart, no filter, the kind of guy who could make you feel like the world wasn't falling apart, even when it was. Now, at 18, I was still trailing after him, my best friend who didn't know he was my everything. The locker room was our battleground, a place where I had to pretend I wasn't staring at the way his shoulders flexed when he pulled off his shirt or how his laugh made my chest ache. Today was no different. Gym class had just ended, and the room buzzed with the usual post-game energy, guys shouting, towels snapping, sneakers squeaking on the tile floor. I lingered by my locker, pretending to dig for my phone, but really, I was watching him. "Yo, Elliot." Caleb's voice snapped me out of my haze. He was closer now, his gym bag slung over one shoulder, his blonde hair still damp from the shower. "You coming to Mia's party tonight, or what?" I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Maybe. You know her parties are just an excuse for everyone to get trashed and hook up." He grinned, that lopsided smile that could unravel me in seconds. "Exactly why you should come. You're too serious, man. Live a little." I rolled my eyes, but my stomach twisted. Caleb was the life of every party, the guy everyone wanted to be around. Girls threw themselves at him, and he'd dated half the cheerleading squad by junior year. Me? I was the quiet one, the artist who spent too much time sketching in my notebook, dreaming of a life where I could tell him the truth. But in Willow Creek, being openly gay wasn't just a risk, it was a death sentence for your social life. I'd seen what happened to kids who came out. Whispers, fists, loneliness. I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The locker room was emptying out, most of the guys heading to the parking lot or the cafeteria. Caleb lingered, fiddling with his lock, and I could feel the air shift, like the world was holding its breath. He glanced at me, his blue eyes catching the fluorescent light, and for a second, I thought he saw right through me. My secret, my longing, the way I memorized every freckle on his face, it felt like it was all laid bare. "You okay, man?" he asked, his voice softer now, like he knew something was off. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Yeah, just tired." He stepped closer, and I could smell the clean scent of his shampoo, could see the faint stubble on his jaw. "You sure? You've been weird lately. Like, quieter than usual." My heart lurched. He noticed. Of course he noticed, he always did. But what could I say? I'm in love with you, and it's killing me to keep it inside. Instead, I forced a laugh. "Just senior year stress, you know? College apps, all that crap." He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "You'd tell me if something was really wrong, right?" I wanted to scream yes and no at the same time. Yes, because I trusted him with my life. No, because telling him would ruin everything. Before I could answer, the locker room door slammed open, and Coach Riley's voice boomed. "Hurry up, ladies. Bus leaves in 10. Caleb clapped a hand on my shoulder, his touch burning through my t-shirt. "Come to the party, Elliot. I need my wingman." I nodded, unable to speak, and watched him walk away, his laughter trailing behind him like a melody I'd never forget. That night, Mia's house was a riot of neon lights and pounding music. Her parents were out of town, and half the senior class was packed into her living room, red Solo cups in hand. I stood in the corner, nursing a soda, watching Caleb work the room like he was born for it. He was telling a story, his hands waving animatedly, and the crowd around him was eating it up. I wanted to hate how easy it was for him, but I couldn't. He was magnetic. "Elliot, you look like you're at a funeral," Mia said, appearing beside me with a grin. She was tiny, with a pixie cut and a nose ring, and she'd been our friend since sophomore year. "Go talk to someone. Or, Dance. I'm good, I said, my eyes still on Caleb. He was laughing with Sarah, one of his exes, and my chest tightened. I hated how jealousy felt, like a knife twisting in my gut. Mia followed my gaze and sighed. You've got it bad, don't you? I froze. What? She smirked. Don't play dumb. I've seen the way you look at him. It's cute, but it's also killing you. My face burned, and I looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. She nudged me. Look, I'm not gonna out you, but you should talk to him. Caleb's not like the other idiots around here. He'd get it. I wanted to believe her, but fear was a powerful thing. It kept my mouth shut, my heart locked away. The party dragged on, and I stayed on the sidelines, watching Caleb shine. By midnight, I was ready to leave, but he found me before I could slip out. Yo, you bailing already? He asked, his cheeks flushed from dancing or drinking or both. Just tired, I lied again. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the backyard. Come on, let's get some air. You're not ditching me that easy. Outside, the air was cool, the stars sharp against the black sky. We sat on the edge of Mia's trampoline, the music muffled behind us. Caleb was quiet for once, his usual energy dialed down. I could feel the weight of his presence beside me, the warmth of his arm brushing mine. You ever feel like you're hiding something from everyone? He asked suddenly, his voice low. My breath caught. What do you mean? He stared at the ground, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. I don't know. Like there's this part of you that nobody knows, and you're scared if they find out. It'll change everything. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Yeah, I whispered. I know what that's like. He looked at me then, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I thought he was going to say something that would change my world. But then he smiled, that same easy grin, and the moment slipped away. You're my best friend, Elliot. You know that, right? I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah, you too. But as we sat there, the silence stretching between us, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something big. Something that would either save me or break me. The next week at school was a blur of midterms and college application deadlines. But Caleb was a constant, like the sun breaking through clouds. We'd walk to class together, his shoulder bumping mine, his laugh pulling me out of my head. But every time I thought I could tell him how I felt, fear clamped down like a vice. Willow Creek wasn't ready for a story like mine, and I wasn't sure I was either. On Thursday, after gym, the locker room was quieter than usual. Most of the team had rushed out for a pizza run, leaving just a few stragglers. I was at my locker, folding my gym clothes with more care than necessary, when Caleb appeared beside me. He was shirtless, his towel slung low around his hips, and I had to force myself to look at his face. You're slow as hell today, he teased, leaning against the locker next to mine. What's up with you? I shrugged, my hands shaking as I zipped my bag. Just thinking. About what? He tilted his head, his eyes narrowing like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I couldn't answer. The words were there, clawing at my throat, but they wouldn't come out. Instead, I mumbled, nothing important. He didn't buy it. He never did. Elliot, come on. You've been off for weeks. What's going on? The locker room was empty now, the hum of the fluorescent lights the only sound. My pulse was racing, and I could feel the weight of his gaze, steady and unwavering. I wanted to tell him everything. How I'd loved him since that day behind the bleachers. How every smile he gave me felt like a lifeline. How I was terrified of losing him if he knew. But the words stayed trapped, heavy and useless. Then, without warning, Caleb stepped closer. Too close. His hand brushed mine, and I froze, my breath catching. His fingers lingered, warm against my skin, and when I looked up, his eyes were different, intense, unguarded, like he was seeing me for the first time. Elliot, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to hide from me. My heart stopped. The world narrowed to just us, the space between us shrinking until I could feel the heat of his body. I wanted to ask what he meant, but my voice was gone. And then, before I could process it, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. It was soft, tentative, like he was testing the waters. My mind went blank, every thought drowned out by the feel of him, the taste of mint gum, and something unmistakably Caleb. I kissed him back, my hands finding his shoulders, and for a moment, nothing else existed. Then reality crashed in. I pulled back, my chest heaving, panic flooding my veins. Caleb, what? I'm sorry, he said quickly, his eyes wide. I didn't mean to. I just... No, don't. I cut him off, my voice shaking. Why did you do that? He ran a hand through his hair, looking as lost as I felt. I don't know, okay? I've been thinking about you. A lot. And I couldn't not do it anymore. My head was spinning. Caleb, my best friend, the guy I'd loved for years, was standing here saying he'd been thinking about me. It was everything I'd wanted, but it felt like a trap. You're not gay, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. You've dated girls. You're your Caleb. He laughed, but it was shaky, nervous. Yeah, I know. But maybe I'm not as straight as I thought. Maybe I've been figuring it out, same as you. I stared at him, my heart caught between hope and fear. You don't know what you're saying. This town, if people find out. I don't care about them, he said, his voice fierce. I care about you. Those words hit me like a punch, stealing my breath. I wanted to believe him, but Willow Creek was a small town with big prejudices. I'd seen the slurs spray-painted on lockers, heard the whispers about kids who didn't fit in. If we were caught, it wouldn't just be gossip, it would be war. Caleb, we can't, I said, my voice breaking. Not here. Not now. His face fell, but he nodded. Okay, but I'm not taking it back. He grabbed his bag and walked out, leaving me alone in the locker room, my lips still tingling from his kiss. I sank onto the bench, my head in my hands, trying to make sense of a world that had just turned upside down. The rest of the week was torture. Caleb acted like nothing had happened, joking with me in the halls, sitting next to me at lunch. But every glance, every brush of his hand, felt charged, like we were carrying a secret that could burn us alive. I avoided being alone with him, terrified of what I might say or do. But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about that kiss, about the way his eyes had looked, like he meant it. On Friday, Mia cornered me in the art room, where I was working on a charcoal sketch of the town's old water tower. You're avoiding him, she said, crossing her arms. I didn't look up. I'm not. You are. And he's miserable. What happened? I gripped my pencil so hard it snapped. Nothing. She sighed, sitting on the table beside me. Elliot, I'm not stupid. I saw you two at the party, sneaking off to the backyard. And now you're both acting like someone died. Did he do something? I wanted to tell her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I shook my head. It's complicated. She studied me for a long moment, then softened. Look, I don't know what's going on, but Caleb's your best friend. And he's not like the rest of this town. If you're scared, I get it. But don't push him away. You'll regret it. Her words stayed with me all weekend, gnawing at me as I lay awake at night, replaying that kiss in my head. By Monday, I knew I couldn't keep running. I had to face him. Monday's gym class was a haze of dodgeballs and shouted insults, but all I could think about was Caleb. He was on the other side of the gym, his focus on the game, but every now and then, his eyes flicked to me. I felt like I was drowning in him, in the possibility of us, and I didn't know how to swim. After class, I lingered in the locker room again, my stomach knotted with nerves. I decided to talk to him, to figure out what that kiss meant, but now that the moment was here, I was terrified. What if he'd changed his mind? What if it was a mistake? The room cleared out, and soon it was just us again, the air thick with tension. Caleb was at his locker, pulling on a clean shirt, and I forced myself to speak. Caleb, we need to talk. He turned, his expression unreadable. Yeah, I was hoping you'd say that. I took a deep breath, my hands clenched at my sides. What happened the other day, was it real? Or was it just I don't know a moment? He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine. It was real, Elliot. I've been thinking about you for months. Maybe longer. I just didn't know how to say it. My heart was racing, but doubt crept in. You've never said anything. You've dated girls, Caleb. You're the guy everyone loves. Why me? He laughed, but it was soft, almost sad. Because you're you. You're the one who gets me, who's always there, no matter what. I didn't realize what it meant until recently, but I want you, Elliot. Not just as my best friend. The words were everything I dreamed of, but they scared me too. This town, I said, my voice shaking. If we do this, it's not just us. It's everyone else. They'll hate us. Let them, he said fiercely. I don't care what they think. I care about you. I wanted to believe him, but fear was a living thing inside me. I'm not like you, Caleb. I'm not brave. I can't just be okay with everyone knowing. He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek, and I leaned into it despite myself. You don't have to be brave alone, he said. We'll figure it out together. This time, when he kissed me, I didn't pull away. It was slow and deliberate, like he was pouring everything he felt into it. My hands found his waist, and I let myself get lost in him, in the warmth of his mouth, the strength of his arms. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. But then the door slammed open, and we sprang apart, my heart in my throat. It was Jake, one of the guys from the team, his eyes wide with shock. What the hell? He spat, his voice dripping with disgust. Caleb stepped in front of me, his jaw tight. Get out, Jake. Jake's lip curled. You too? Seriously? This is messed up. Walk away, Caleb said, his voice low and dangerous. Now. Jake hesitated, then stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I was shaking, my mind racing with what this meant. Jake wasn't the type to keep quiet. By tomorrow, the whole school would know. Caleb, I whispered, my voice breaking. What do we do? He turned to me, his eyes fierce. We don't hide. Not anymore. The rest of the day was a nightmare. Whispers followed us in the halls, eyes tracking our every move. By lunch, the rumors were everywhere. Caleb sat next to me, his shoulder pressed against mine, a silent promise that he wasn't going anywhere. But I could feel the weight of every stare, every muttered word. Mia found us in the cafeteria, her face pale. It's all over school, she said, sliding into the seat across from us. Jake's telling everyone he caught you too, you know. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. Let him talk. I'm not ashamed. I wanted to feel his confidence, but all I could think about was my mom, alone at home, working double shifts to keep us afloat. What would she say when she heard? And what about college? I'd been dreaming of getting out of Willow Creek, starting fresh somewhere no one knew me. Now, that dream felt like it was slipping away. We need a plan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just about us. It's our families, our future. Caleb reached for my hand under the table, his fingers lacing through mine. We'll figure it out, Elliot. I promise. But as the day went on, the whispers turned into shouts. Someone spray-painted a slur on my locker, the red paint dripping like blood. Caleb saw it before I did and tried to scrub it off, his hands shaking with rage. They're idiots, he said. They don't know us. But they did know us. They knew the quiet kid who drew in his notebook and the golden boy who lit up every room. And now, they knew something else, something we weren't ready to share. That night, I couldn't sleep. The slur on my locker was burned into my mind, a reminder that Willow Creek wasn't a safe place for us anymore. Caleb texted me at midnight, his words simple but heavy. I'm not giving up on you. We'll get through this. I wanted to believe him, but fear was a poison, seeping into every thought. I imagined my mom's face when she found out, the disappointment in her eyes. I imagined losing my scholarship to the art school in Chicago, the one chance I had to escape this town. Most of all, I imagined losing Caleb, not to the rumors, but to the pressure of a world that wasn't ready for us. The next morning, Caleb was waiting for me outside my house, his beat-up pickup truck idling at the curb. Get in, he said, his voice steady but urgent. We're skipping first period. I hesitated, but the look in his eyes, determined, almost desperate, pulled me in. We drove to the edge of town, to the old quarry where kids went to drink and make out. It was empty this early, the water below glinting in the morning light. Caleb cut the engine and turned to me. We need to talk about this. About us. I stared at my hands, my throat tight. There's no us if this town tears us apart. They won't, he said, his voice fierce. Not if we don't let them. I laughed, bitter and hollow. You make it sound so easy. Jake's probably told half the county by now. My mom's gonna hear about it. Your dad. My dad can go to hell, Caleb snapped. His dad was a pastor at the local church, a man who preached love but practiced judgment. Caleb had never fit his mold, but this would break them. Caleb, you don't get it, I said, my voice rising. I've been hiding who I am for years. I've seen what happens to kids like me. They get pushed out, beaten up, forgotten. I can't lose everything because of this. He grabbed my hand, his grip tight. You're not losing me. And I'm not losing you. We'll leave this town if we have to. We'll start over. His words were a lifeline, but I was still sinking. And go where? We're 18. We've got no money, no plan. We'll figure it out, he said, his voice softening. I've been saving up for my job at the hardware store. We could go to Chicago, like you've always wanted. You could go to art school, and I'd find something. I stared at him, my heart aching. You'd leave everything for me? He smiled, that lopsided grin that had always been my weakness. You're my everything, Elliot. I kissed him then, hard and desperate, like I could pour all my fear and hope into it. He kissed me back, his hands framing my face, and for a moment, the world felt right. But when we got back to school, reality was waiting. A group of guys from the team was outside the gym, Jake at the center. They saw us pull up, and the looks on their faces told me everything. This wasn't going to end quietly. Stay close, Caleb muttered, his hand brushing mine as we walked inside. The rest of the day was a gauntlet. Slurs whispered in the halls. Notes slipped into my locker, glares from people I'd known since kindergarten. Caleb stayed by my side, his jaw set, but I could see the toll it was taking on him. He was used to being loved, not hated. At lunch, Mia sat with us again, her eyes blazing. I heard what they're saying, she said. It's bullshit. You two don't deserve this. It's not about deserving it, I said quietly. It's about surviving it. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You're not alone. I'm with you. And there are others who will be too. I wanted to believe her, but the weight of the town's judgment was crushing. By the end of the day, I was ready to run, anywhere, as long as it was away from here. That evening, I told my mom. I'd been dreading it, but the rumors were spreading too fast, and I couldn't let her hear it from someone else. We sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, her face lined with exhaustion from her shift at the diner. Elliot, she said, her voice soft but steady. Is there something you need to tell me? I took a deep breath, my hands trembling. I'm gay, Mom, and I'm in love with Caleb. She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. I braced for anger, disappointment, anything. But then she reached for my hand, her grip warm and firm. I've known for a while, honey. I was waiting for you to tell me. Tears stung my eyes. You're not mad. She shook her head, a small smile breaking through. I'm your mom. I love you no matter what. But this town, it's not going to be easy. I know, I whispered. That's why I'm scared. She squeezed my hand tighter. You don't have to do this alone. We'll figure it out. Her words gave me strength, but they couldn't erase the fear. Caleb's dad was a different story. When Caleb told him that night, it didn't go well. He showed up at my house an hour later, his eyes red, his voice shaking. He kicked me out, Caleb said, standing on my porch with a duffel bag. Said I'm not his son anymore. My heart broke for him. I pulled him inside, and we sat on my bed, his head in his hands. I'm sorry, I said, feeling helpless. Don't be, he said, looking up at me. I'd rather lose him than lose you. We stayed up all night, talking about our fears, our dreams, our future. He told me about the college he'd applied to in Chicago, how he'd been planning to follow me there all along. I told him about the sketches I'd done of him, hidden in my notebook, each one a confession I'd never had the courage to make. By morning, we had a plan. We'd finish the school year, save every penny we could, and leave Willow Creek for good. Chicago was our beacon, a place where we could be ourselves without fear. But first, we had to survive the next few months. At school, things got worse. The slurs on my locker became a daily ritual, and Caleb got into a fight with Jake after he called us something I won't repeat. The principal suspended them both, but it didn't stop the hate. People we'd called friends turned their backs, and even some teachers looked at us differently. But there were bright spots too. Mia rallied a small group of allies, kids from the art club, the theater kids, even a few from the team who didn't care what anyone thought. They sat with us at lunch, walked with us in the halls, a quiet rebellion against the town's prejudice. One day, Mia dragged us to a meeting of the school's GSA, a club I didn't even know existed. The room was small, filled with kids who looked as scared as I felt. But there was a warmth there, a sense of belonging I'd never known. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. Caleb squeezed my hand under the table, his smile soft. "Told you we'd find our people," he whispered. Spring came, and with it, a fragile sense of hope. Caleb moved in with my mom and me, sleeping on a cot in my room. It wasn't ideal, but it was ours. We'd stay up late, whispering about Chicago, about the life we'd build together. He'd tease me about my sketches, and I'd blush, but it felt right, like we were finally becoming who we were meant to be. At school, the hate didn't stop, but we learned to navigate it. We avoided the worst of the bullies, stuck close to our allies, and focused on the future. I got my acceptance letter from the art school in Chicago, and Caleb got into a community college nearby. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. One afternoon, we were in the art room, working on a mural for the GSA. Caleb was hopeless with a paintbrush, but he tried, his tongue sticking out as he focused. I laughed, and he smeared paint on my cheek, pulling me into a kiss that tasted like acrylic and possibility. But even in our happiest moments, the shadow of Willow Creek loomed. Caleb's dad started a campaign at his church, preaching against sin in a way that felt personal. People stopped my mom at the grocery store, asking if she was okay with her son's choices. One night, we found our car's tires slashed, a note tucked under the windshield wiper, "Leave." Caleb wanted to confront his dad, but I begged him not to. "We're almost out," I said. "Don't let them win." He nodded, but I could see the fire in his eyes. Caleb wasn't built to back down, and I loved him for it, even if it scared me. As graduation approached, we started counting down the days. We'd saved enough for a deposit on a tiny apartment in Chicago, and my mom promised to visit once we were settled. The future felt so close, but so fragile, like it could slip through our fingers if we weren't careful. Graduation day was chaos, caps and gowns, tearful parents, and a gym packed with people who either loved us or hated us. Caleb and I sat together, our hands brushing under the folds of our robes. When my name was called, I walked across the stage, my heart pounding, knowing half the crowd was whispering about me. But when I looked out, I saw my mom, beaming, and Caleb, grinning like he'd won the lottery. After the ceremony, we slipped away to the quarry, just the two of us. The sun was setting, painting the water gold, and we sat on the hood of Caleb's truck, our shoulders pressed together. "We made it," he said, his voice soft. "Barely," I said, but I was smiling. He turned to me, his eyes bright. "I meant what I said, Elliot. I'm not giving up on you. Not ever." I leaned my head on his shoulder, the weight of the past few months falling away. "I've loved you since 9th grade," I admitted, the words finally free. "I never thought you'd love me back." He laughed, pulling me closer. I was an idiot for taking so long. We kissed as the stars came out, the world quiet except for the sound of our breathing. Willow Creek had tried to break us, but it hadn't. We were stronger than their hate, stronger than their fear. And as we drove away from the quarry, toward a future we'd fight for together, I knew we'd be okay. Chicago was waiting, a city big enough to hold our dreams, our love, our truth. We weren't running away, we were running toward something better. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid.